Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast. I am so psyched for you listening. I am your host, Neil Horowitz. You can find me on Twitter at NJH287. Hit me up on LinkedIn as well, where I post more content. The website is dsmsports.net, where you can check out more episodes and content, and of course, follow along, subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcast platform. What a tremendous show for you guys today. This conversation was so awesome. I learned a ton. You're going to learn a ton. It's going to get your wheels spinning quite a bit. I'm joined on the podcast today by Devin Dismang. He is the Director of Athlete Partnerships at STN Digital. He's also a producer and director that works with major athletes and brands. Just so much talent and so much knowledge that he has and experience. And you're going to really enjoy the conversation I have with Devin. But first, this episode's helpful tool. This episode's helpful tool is a little non-traditional of a helpful tool, and it is a pretty quickly emerging site. I don't know exactly how old it is, but it's taking off in my timeline throughout my community, our network, and it's called Gondola. Yes, like the boats in Venice, as well as the things that take you up to the top of mountains. And the website is gondola.cc. You may have seen them on social, on Twitter, on Instagram, @ongondola. And essentially what Gondola is it's a place it's kind of like Behance for social media managers and social media people and content creators and producers. It allows you to post content that you've been a part of and then also be able to track your stats, be able to build a portfolio of all the successful social media content that you've helped produce or helped strategize around. And it's primarily targeted at creatives, whether it's video producers, editors, photographers, graphic designers, but it's also about the strategists and the managers as well that are helping to coordinate and oversee this content getting produced. And it's a really tremendous tool to build a professional resume out or professional portfolio out for anyone in social. There's also an element of being able to discover creators. If you see something really cool, you can, like a great post or a great piece of content, you can usually find it on there and then see, well, who was behind it, who made it. It's really pretty cool. You can browse for days. You can also look up people and search posts by various filters they have. It's really a pretty cool concept. I look forward to seeing continue to grow and continue to learn. I look forward to learning more about it as well. So check it out. Again, it's called Gondola. On Gondola on social, and gondola.cc is the website. Pretty cool, and that's episode's helpful tool. And stick around, because coming up next, you're going to love this conversation with Devin Dismang. Back with today's guest, and I am so excited to be talking to him, someone whose work I've admired for years, and he's continuing to do great stuff in the space. I'm joined on the podcast today by Devin Dismang. He is the Director of Athlete Partnerships for STN Digital, and also an executive producer, just doing great stuff in the sports and athlete space. And welcome to the podcast today, Devin.
My man, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to first and foremost talk with you again. Obviously, we've been in connect for a minute, but it's always great to talk shop with you.
Hell yeah. I love geeking out on this stuff, and you've really done so much great stuff in your career. You're still a young man and continue to do more stuff here in the future. But we want to hear about you. Tell us about your path, your background, how you got involved in this crazy space that we all love, your various stops along the way, and any tips for folks that want to do what you do.
Yeah. To give you the 500-foot view of me, is I started working in sports when I was 16. I lucked out that in the town I was living at the time, the Chicago Bears turned that into their training camp, and they pretty much hired as a community outreach thing. They hired like their all city team, pretty much football players, and I was lucky enough to be on that list. So they hired us as like extra hands, right? And that turned into like, oh snap, you forget that like the sports side is a business. It's not just a game you watch on Sunday or, on tip off. Like there's a whole thing around it. And that's where I first learned about game presentation and just live events. And that sparked my interest all the way through college, to where I worked for various teams, again, like the Bears, the Chicago Fire, the Chicago Sky, when they first started up as well. Mm-hmm. And then when I graduated college and wasn't, tall enough to go to the NFL, I decided to go work for the NFL and worked for the Atlanta Falcons for a year. Then I bounced around from there to the Thunder, came back home, worked for the Fire, all in the game presentation role, which ultimately took me to the Warriors, as well as a game presentation role, which evolved into a video production role and helping build out the in-house video team there. And then in 2019, I decided to go solo, go freelance, Honestly, had a great time. I started a business to where athletes essentially hired me to be the storyteller about their lives, not just on the field, but off, and more so humanizing their story. And it couldn't happen at a better time. I signed a bunch of folks who played on the Lakers and as well as a couple of Dubs players, which happened to be a great time because then the NBA bubble happened, and it turned into how do we now tell a story in a non-traditional manner. And I pretty much was in the front line of turning an athlete into a content creator, into a storyteller, in a way that you have may seen like vloggers do, or you have may seen, now the TikTok folks are doing, but it was not really in the sports world, right? People had maybe attempted to do it, but it just never really caught on. And I think from that standpoint, now that turned into my passion of, hey, we're editing documentaries, we're editing, whether it's a YouTube series, whether it's, a series on Twitch that guys are now getting paid for. How do we optimize that athlete voice as well as tell a true and honest story in a way that, standard national media cannot do or won't do because they have an agenda, as well as teams, right? Teams have a filter that they have to abide by, and sometimes a player's story gets, pushed away from that. So that then turned into my role here at STN. While I still do the freelancing thing, here at STN, I really help athletes turn that content into cash. That's really what I pitch them on and tell them, hey, look, your story is something that the world is seeing, and we are able to turn that into a revenue stream for you without losing the quality of your voice, where some brands have the issue of turning a ad campaign into something that doesn't feel natural for a brand, where someone like me comes in, I'm like, hey, that doesn't fit him, so let's protect his voice, but let's find out a different thing that maybe it works out. So my path is definitely a little different than others. I didn't go to school for video. I didn't go to school for sales. I didn't, I barely went to school for marketing, but all of it kind of stemmed into the same thing of like, I understand the athlete's voice. I understand what they look to do. And, that's where my career path, that's the common thread between it all.
Yeah, no, I think having that perspective certainly has helped you throughout your career and will continue to help you in this role now. I do want to take a step back. I look forward to talking about athletes becoming Casey Neistats and all that as well.
Right.
But it sounds like you picked sports. I mean, yes, you had those opportunities early on with the just being where you were and being in the greater Chicago area. But when did it click for you that I want to do something in sports? And then in school was just like, I'll get some internships and figure it out as I go? Or was there always like a certain path, or was there always sports and I'll figure out what that path in sports looks like? Like, what was that mindset for you?
Well, I lucked out a little bit more than some other folks where I was able to get into the sports world a lot younger than people are able to now, right? Like being able to get in with an NFL team at 16 years old versus post college is very tough to do, even in a part-time capacity. So being able to kind of learn those smaller things, right? Like part of my job when I first started was unraveling and inflating inflatables outside of like Bears games.
Nice.
For fans, like when we had fan zones, right? Like if you remember going to any games growing up and they had big old fan zones, like that's what I helped lead from like 16 to 19. So at that point they just needed people who could help move these heavy ass inflatables back and forth and inflate them, deflate them, roll them up and throw them in a storage bin. That then turned into, okay, well, you're doing great on the outside. How can you help us on the inside? And that turned into like, hey, we need help organizing our, anthem singers. We need help organizing our halftime acts to where they can then, we're doing a rehearsal. I'm queuing people in a tunnel and I'm doing all this younger and younger. I'm like, I'm directing a show. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing something that as a kid, I used to watch the Bears group do all this crazy stuff. I'm now helping bring this to life. This is nuts. It was something I never knew could be a career. So that kind of turned into like, okay, how do I learn this business side while going to school, while playing football, while doing all this? So when it wasn't season out, I'm working for teams. I'm going back and forth to Chicago from school to learn the day-to-day stuff, right? Like, and I had a lot of great managers or people who would, I would ask them a ton of questions, probably annoyingly so, To where I would be like, hey, why do you do it this way? Or hey, why do you do it that way? And it was never in terms of challenge them. I was more so just trying to learn their method and why certain things were done in a certain way. And it was really just to be a part of the action without being the action itself, I think. And as a sports fan and anybody who, has ever worked in sports, they'll tell you like you always want to feel like you're a part of it, even though your time is up on the field or on the court or wherever it may be. So this was really the closest I could get without being a player at the time. And that's really what drove it for me in regards to the game presentation side. Yeah.
Was there what was that perspective like of I am in an operations role of, hey, we need to manage all these products. We need to make sure the game script is on point. We need to make sure that the halftime performer is ready. We need to make sure all the schedules are lining up. We need to make sure the stuff is organized and clean. And so like how does that operation side of things intersect with the creative side? And how did that start to mold into the skills that ultimately you developed, as you went on in your career, going more to the storytelling side and creative side and not completely away from, but less about the operation stuff?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I went the way I did because the operation side taught me process and structure, where sometimes the creative side can be very chaotic, right? Like sometimes we'll get into a call or a meeting where everyone's kind of just throwing ideas to the wall. And I'm like, hey, this is great. However, there's no structure to that. And a lot of these ideas are going to fall flat. So how do we build processes out for certain ideas? So it helped me to think both ways. I've always been a creative individual. It's just I needed to understand the structure of how certain businesses work because we don't want to waste time or assets. And I'm very big on time and energy management, to where I don't want to waste that just on a hunch or like someone's feeling or like, this is cool. We got to make sure it works for the brand. It works for the messaging. It works for everybody because we don't want to go down a path and it's 95% ready to go. And then we get that one no because it didn't match, a sponsor's name or this and that. And, the several no's we get from the marketing side on a daily basis. So the process and the organization where it was, whether it was script time, how long do I have, for instance, how long do I have for a timeout, right? Well, can I do a game, if we're speaking from a basketball standpoint, can I do a game within 2 minutes that's going to be enough to not only make sure the sponsor is showcased enough that the audience is going to enjoy it, to where it's not invasive to the game and or the timeouts, and also doesn't cause issues for the stadium and or operations staff within a building. So there's all of these things you have to juggle to make sure you can have a decent product when it's showcased. And a lot of it can be trial and error, right? There's certain leagues and certain areas you can do trial and error to see if it works, but there's also just understanding what your limitations are. And the operation side really allowed me to do that, especially when it was combined with the creative side.
Yeah, I'm interested in this stuff so much because we talk a lot about the content strategy and the social and sponsor monetization, all that stuff on this podcast all the time. But we haven't spent enough time talking about the game off stuff, and I know we'll talk about a little bit of everything with you today, Devin.
Yeah.
But how do you know when something is successful in a game presentation? Are you looking at the number of eyeballs on the screen, the right people paying attention, if the kids are engaged, if just a gut feel? Like, how do you know when something's working, and how do you go about it? And also, what does it mean to have something working? Meaning, like, it's portraying us in the way we want to portray our brand or our partner. And also, like I mentioned earlier, the sort of engagement level of the fans.
Yeah, I think, I believe that the way to kind of see if it works is almost a two-pronged thing, to where first and foremost, you want to see from a fan standpoint how engaged they are with that product. For instance, if again using basketball as a reference, if you go to a basketball game and you notice, fan cams, right? There's 30,000 fan cams, it seems to be now. That is an idea that probably will never die because it works every single time. Because who doesn't want to see themselves on a TV that is, that's just getting to the psychological nature of a human being. Same with t-shirt toss, right? That's going to be in every building, every stadium till the rest of the time, because who doesn't want free stuff? Like, there's certain things that's going to just stand the test of time. Half court shots, for instance, for $30,000.
Yeah.
The other part is, if you tie it to a brand, especially to see if it works, if you tie it to a brand, does that brand make sense? Because there's some games to where you do it and it doesn't work the way you want it to because the brand was so tied to something. I did a game in Santa Cruz for the G League team out there, and it was tied to a pizzeria, and they wanted to do human bowling, but there was nothing else tied to it. Naturally, there wasn't like the bowling pins were breadsticks, or like there wasn't anything that really tied in the brand to it. It was just like, hey, here's this. We're just gonna throw our name on it. And while the game was fun, from a branding and almost relativity standpoint, like people didn't know who the sponsor was until you see it on the video board or you get the $25 gift certificate to the restaurant or something. So I think that's a two-pronged thing to where like fans, and another one is like another great example. This is the 100-point challenge, right? Again, use a basketball as a reference. Is like you'll have 99 points or you'll be and someone's at the free throw line and someone's like tacos, tacos. Like they're chanting for what the prize is. That is not only just a activation that works, but it's also product placement, right? Like I'm going to Jack in the Box for the tacos, man. I can't wait. So it's all these things that people need to understand when they're putting the games together and putting just overall entertainment together for an in-stadium experience. That those are the two things that are going to make it work, because now you have product recognition as well as fan engagement.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it dovetails well into just everything you're doing throughout your career, but even now with working with athletes and getting them involved with brands as well. You think about that game ops, the game presentation stuff when you are working with a team, whether it's NBA, NFL, NBA, or MLS, whatever it might be. There are different parties that are kind of at work, at play. You have the fans, you want them to be engaged and you want them to have fun with it and appreciate it, not feel like they're being, thrown an ad at their way. You want the sponsor to feel like they're getting relevant value and relevant recognition, and not just, like you said, a human bowling contest with no tie to the sponsor at all. And you want the team itself as well to have it feel like it's something that is positive for them. They're giving their fans a positive experience, and also that if it's going to be around a point total, that it's a positive thing, that it's good when the team accomplishes it. So as you're thinking about like how a brand and athlete best work together in terms of content, in terms of any sort of partnership, how does that come into play where you are really making sure that you understand what the brand wants to get out of something, you understand what the player wants to get out of something, you understand what you're trying to do for the fans, while also balancing that there is relevant value for the partner and it's more than just a logo slap or presented by?
Yeah. First and foremost, the number one priority thing is that the athlete's voice must be tried and true in any piece of content that comes out. So if a brand wants to throw their name to anything that an athlete is doing, or it's a original concept, that concept needs to be authentically that athlete's voice first and foremost, because that is what's going to get the engagement. That's what's going to get the sell. That's what's going to get the views or whatever the end goal is for that brand, for that concept. Because how many times have we seen brand integration with an athlete or team or whomever, and it falls flat because it is such a commercialized piece of content?
Yeah.
And and you see it when the athlete's not involved. I'll use one that's like, while we love the in arena try and copy that concepts, where an athlete will do something behind a hoop shot, and they'll just say try and copy that, and it's a random kind of piece of integration. Fans don't really get too tried and involved, especially in arena. Now, if you go to let's say, when you get I'm trying to think of one right off the top of my mind. When they doodle the almost like the what's it called? Newlywed Game, almost. Yeah. I can't remember the name to do it in arena, but that is strictly playing off the personalities of two athletes and showcasing them truly while having a brand integration with it, right? That is much more received, and we see those go viral all the time versus the other one. Now talking strictly content on the athletes' pages, the brand's mission, first and foremost, usually has to tie into what an athlete is tied to. So like if an athlete is a gamer, the brands that we're going to look forward to, or I'm going to look forward to, is gaming, to where they can now have some sort of product integration. They can have some sort of tie into that organization, they can have some sort of return on that partnership that is not just monetarily, but it's also something they're truly interested in and could really build an authentic relationship, because there's too many one-time only deals where they just want brand recognition and they kind of go away. And people read through that like it's no other. We see that nowadays with influencer campaigns more than anything. So for an athlete, you got to be much more protective, because while they are influencers, we don't want to devalue their voice for a paycheck. So making sure whatever that piece of content is authentically them, because that's also what the fans are going to want. And then finding brands that really tie into that piece of content naturally.
Let's hone in on the athlete perception of authenticity and knowing who they want to be. And this goes back throughout your career and continuing to today of, hey, X player is going to be part of this fun campaign that we're doing, or this fun piece of content we're doing for in-game and or for social. How much do they think about and are cognizant of, like, by me participating in this whatever newlywed game or kids draw the players or whatever it might be, how cognizant are athletes of what that means for their brand, and if this is portraying them in the way they want to be portrayed, or hell yeah, I'm going to raise my hand and be involved with this because it's going to make me more endearing and more likable for fans, for potential partners. And how do you see that sort of evolve throughout your career as you started working more hand in hand with players, both on stuff for the team channels as well as for their own channels, and how that might have differed?
Yeah, I think within the last, talking 2022 now, I would say maybe there was a big shift. 2017, there was a huge shift in that type of knowledge for players. I think pre 2017, only a few got it. And even the ones who got it didn't know how to optimize it. They were really just trying to figure it out. Look at someone like, let's use Steph Curry, for example, right? Steph was building like his SC30 empire at the time, and also trying to do content, like smaller content pieces, but they didn't really do the best. So he ended up stopping. If you go to his YouTube page, you can see that. So they took a break to really figure it out. But then as he got more and more cognizant, you'll see some of the activations he no longer participates in. For instance, him realizing how much his voice was worth, he would only do a small amount of Warriors specific content that really featured him on camera, because he knew at the end of the day, if he does that, he's not getting a piece of whatever that pie is. So if he goes now and does the same concept on his channel, he's now able to make not only money there, he's able to tell it without me or without the team, essentially, not without me, but without the team almost controlling the narrative. Now he controls the narrative, what story he tells. He controls that final edit. He controls how it's posted. And any brands or monetary deals that come from that, that's all him. That doesn't have to go through the team to where he sees nothing. He's just kind of like a patsy for it.
Yeah.
Now, as we evolve, right, we see this more and more, especially with the evolution of, the platform TikTok, right? I think TikTok is a huge platform that, we all needed to gauge for a year. And after seeing it for a year and what it's done, it's really turned into I'm going to say the second top platform in the world, because I still can't believe there was a day last year that it took over YouTube as the most watched platform online. It was the craziest stat I've ever seen, because I don't think I've seen YouTube lose that battle in 20 years or something. Well, however long YouTube's been on. So the evolution of that, we've seen the evolution of, obviously, speaking of YouTube channels, Twitch channels, partnership deals with things like a YouTube or Facebook or Netflix or whomever, to where now these athlete stories no longer need or even participate with the teams unless they are those, let's call them tier 2 or tier 3 athletes who still need a little more publicity. And this is the way to kind of build that recognition out. But I think after 2017, and ironically, I'm gonna kind of fault that championship team of the Warriors, is like when Kevin Durant came over to Golden State after that 2016 finals, 2016, 2017, that's where you saw the evolution of like 35 Ventures, of the Boardroom,
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Durant's YouTube channel. That's where JaVale started Parking Lot Chronicles. Like all these things were really popping because this one team had started to optimize their content. Draymond is now doing, he's almost a media personality essentially because now he has his show on Uninterrupted. But a lot of that started building from that 2017 year. So I think there was a huge shift that year with athletes across the board. Cam Newton's another great example of that, to where he started telling his story. And he even has his own production company now because he understood, like, hey, I don't need the Carolina Panthers to tell my story in New York. I don't need the New England Patriots to tell my story. I'm going to tell it in the way I do it, right? He released a video after he got released from New England talking about his side. It's a full-on production. I think he got 1.1 million views or something like that. But he made money off telling that story. If he had done that after he signed to Carolina, right? Carolina would have pocketed that revenue. He really wouldn't have got nothing but the brand recognition, which he doesn't really need anymore. So the athletes learning this now and then younger and younger, we can talk about the NIL as well, that they are learning the importance of their voice, their brand, their personality, their everything. Now at an 18, 19-year-old level, 17, think about Mikey Williams out there in San Diego. They are going to really put pressure on teams, media, etc., because they're not going to be given those same opportunities away for free. There's going to have to come with a dollar sign. And that is something I think is going to be fantastic because we're not only going to get the tried and true version of an athlete, but we're also going to pretty much revolutionize how brands integrate their names, their brands, their voices, their products, whatever it may be, within an athlete partnership, which is clutch.
Oh man, there's so much here that I want to pick through with you, Devin. This is like
You're good, man.
you opened up a Pandora's box, and I love it. I love to hear about this this evolving dynamic of the athlete team relationship. Yeah. It wasn't that long ago where I don't want to say that the athletes need the teams just as much as the teams need the athletes and vice versa. But at some point there was, hey, if I want to get my story told, if I want to get cool content out there about me, I kind of got to, play along with the team and collaborate with them. And that's not going anywhere. There's still that possibility, that capability, but you've had this move to, hey, I am at the level where I can bring in my own content team. I can hire my own content, producers. So how did that play out early on with the Warriors? And then moving forward as well of, hey, yes, we have this, we're starting out this with Warrior Studio, this in-house production agency almost, that we're going to be telling these great stories. And in some ways, it's, as an athlete, it's like, well, awesome. This team's going to be, they're paying me millions of dollars to play basketball, and they're also going to be giving me quote unquote free content that is, telling my story and being good for me. But at the same time, now it's like, well, the more time I spend on that content, it's for their channels, but I'm not focusing on my channels quite as much, or I can producing content myself, and now I don't maybe need their production team. So what was that collaboration and communication like of early on? It might have been, hey, we love to do this project with you. And then later on, it might be, hey, can you do this project with us? Because it's almost like a trade-off where they don't have to say yes. They can say, no, I'm going to spend that time after practice doing my own thing. So what was that collaboration like, and how did that evolve as athletes became more aware that, hey, I don't need your production team to do this for me?
Yeah. I think early on, again, I'm going to use that 2017 example. Yeah. I think that between 2014 and 2016, there was obviously the Warriors were what they were right there, right before, even before Kevin came over. And there were still like, hey, we're going to tell this story. And there was a lot of, internal, like the team, like we would do it, right? Like there was a lot of like, this is Steph's biggest game. This is Clay's biggest game. Like we're having fun. We're doing this. They're really incorporating them with us. Then obviously that's where national media take over. I think at the time, and I don't know how it's operating now post my leave, but at the time, a PR's role is to really optimize the national media. So you would see us get bumped for national media, which, okay, understandable. Like ESPN comes in, I'm not gonna say no to Richard Michaels, but like at the time I was, we were just like, all right, cool, we get it. But then it was more so like newspaper, like we'd have like the Times come in, or we'd have the Athletic come in, or we would have local stuff. They're like the Chronicle or whomever, and they would start getting stories over us to where like we would have to essentially fight for these, like for time with players.
Yeah.
And then that changed immediately when Kevin came, to where we were pretty much bumped in the back and be like, hey, get in when you can. Like, if you see him for 5 seconds, try doing it. But there was also a lot of hurdles, right? Like, everyone wanted to talk to the Warriors at that point. Everyone wanted to be somewhat involved in what the team was. So we had to tell the story from a different angle, to where now we can't get to our big four, right? Dre, Clay, Steph, and Kevin. Well, let's talk to everyone around that. So this is really the start of what I was thinking of. Like, everyone is so worried about these four. Nobody is worried about the other, the other 12, the other 13. So let me talk to the other 13. Hey, Jordan Bell, let me get you for 5 seconds. Hey, Quinn Cook, let me get you for 20 minutes and talk about your life. Nick Young, when you get here, people want to talk to you, but shoot, you got 5 minutes. Let me holler at you for a second, my boy. JaVale, when you get here, let's talk. So getting to know those guys allowed us to tell the story of the team in a different way than using the top four. And I think that was important because it showcased how all athlete voices are important, not just your top tier ones. And because of that, right, we won, I won an Emmy with Quinn Cook on his documentary because no one had really spoken about him on what it was, right? We got nominated awards for just funny stuff we did with Nick and JaVale during that year, because Nick and JaVale were just, their dynamic is great and everyone loves to see that. And then from there, it was like I made relationships with Sean Livingston, to where post Warriors, I helped him out with his retirement announcement. So it was all of these things to where everyone ignored these other ones and really tried to go after the top four, to where like we had to pivot and kind of go the other way, which allowed us to then tell the story. And I think now, with the importance of players having their voices, now everyone up to the last person on the bench is telling their stories. Let's use an example recently of one of my good friends and one of my boys, Alfonso McKinney. He used to play for the Warriors, used to play for the Lakers, now out here with the Bulls after just going through the G League once again. He's still dropping little videos here and there on his Instagram that kind of tell and showcase his story, because he just signed with his childhood team, Chicago Bulls.
Yeah. So
while, his story may not be the most appealing to national media at the moment, that's still a story that should be told, because it is still an important life achievement for him to be playing in his hometown for his hometown team, while his family is all still here, while his friends are all still here, all of these things that are super important. So it's going to be more and more tough for the team athlete relationship, because at some point they're going to be like, no, you're going to have to contractually make me do stuff for your team, because right now they do the same thing with the media, right? Hey, you got to have 12 media availabilities this year. Okay, cool. But if he misses one, guess who gets fined? So they're going to have to start baking those in, I feel, at some point. And then teams are just going to have to be creative on how they tell the stories, with highlights, with, behind the scenes stuff that other people can't get. And again, building those relationships to where some guys may not care and really enjoy being on camera, or even enlist the team to be like, hey, we would love for you to help us out with this documentary. It is still going to be my project, but I would love for it to be in collaboration with X team. But there's going to have to be a contract. There's going to be some money split. There's going to have to be this and that. I just think at that point, teams are going to have to figure out how to navigate that, because the athletes more and more are going to understand that their voice, from the first guy to the 16th guy, especially talking from a basketball standpoint, NFL, we know how crazy these stories are going on now. They're going to have to figure it out now, because the more and more that the NIL athletes learn, it's going to be even worse once they go pro, because they're not going to even have a shot to be like, hey, I'm the number one draft pick. Hey, we need to do this behind the scenes. Sorry, no, I've teamed up with Tom Brady's Shadow Lion, and they're actually my production house. So you need to work in tandem with them.
So that's the thing. Like, what is the future, or what is the role of the team moving forward? Is it going to be to facilitate players doing their own thing and saying, hey, like, we're going to help, like, we'll give you some footage from from practice that we shot so your production team can use for B-roll, or hey, as a team, we're going to focus more on the guys that can't help themselves quite as much because they don't have the effort or know-how or production team to do it themselves, or all the above. Like, because in some ways, like, to your point, these kids, these players are coming up now that they've been producing their own content, whether it's on TikTok or YouTube or Twitch themselves, and they might not need the help. So, like, exactly. What is the future of that, of the role the team should play in helping those athletes in any capacity?
honestly, the teams first and foremost should probably offer support, but also it's almost like they're gonna again. I think they're gonna have to be contractually obligated to do it because there's no way in my mind I'm going to. We see it all the time on just I'm going to use TikTok as an example because it's just taking the world by storm. But like, we're not doing this stuff for free, right? Like, I already am playing basketball for you. I'm already playing football for you. I'm already coming to the practices. I'm already coming to the meetings. I'm already doing community events that I'm contractually obligated to do. I'm already doing media availability. I'm already contractually available to do. Now you want me to sit with your video team to do an in-house piece on this athlete or about me for 25 additional minutes of my day with no return. So how is a team going to then tell a player what the return is? Hey, this is good for your exposure. Hey, this is good for your PR. Hey, like at that point, a lot of even the, like I said, even the smaller ones are kind of like, no, I'm cool. Like, I'm cool. Think of, we have sports agencies now that are threading the needle and pushing the envelope with athletes, even smaller tier ones. Look at Clutch, right? Like, Clutch did a great job recently with Taylor Horton Tucker. Like, he's still coming off the bench for the Lakers, but they push him on their platforms to where he then pushes that way, and now he's getting deals with like Gatorade to like tell his content.
Yeah,
you'll like those types of things are happening to where teams are going to have to figure it out, because at that point, teams are just going to have to be almost an additional audience member to tell the story. And all you're going to really get from them is cool highlights, behind the scenes stuff, maybe some locker room things. They're still going to get great access, but I don't know if you're going to continue to get one-on-one access. And I think that's the key.
Oh, I could go down this rabbit hole all day. It's super fascinating to see where this is all heading. And it's all like a rising tide lifts all boats in this case too. If a Quinn Cook is having his story told, or his own platforms is going off, or if Fonzo McKinney's own platforms are going off, that's going to help. It's only going to help the team more because they're going to sell more jerseys. They're going to get more fans to come out to the games because they want to see this guy play after falling in love with him on his platform. They're going to tune in more. So it's not a zero-sum game by any means, and hopefully that will win out in the end. A minute here left with Devin Dismang before we get to this episode's terrible stat. Devin, I feel like we're just starting, but time's flying by. I do want to make sure I ask you about just you alluded to earlier with JaVale and the bubble vlog, and just I mean, so one of the coolest things ever. Really, it really opened up a lot of eyes to holy crap! Like, this is athletes can be they're vloggers and create better content than any media outlet ever could. So tell me about how that started, how the idea came together, what the operation was actually like, and what your role was and your perspective was playing that role living outside the bubble.
Yeah, so JaVale, to give you a little backstory, JaVale was the first athlete I signed to present to my company from Post Warriors. My first project was with Sean Livingston. Again, I mentioned earlier doing his retirement one, but JaVale was the first like retainer client I got where you were like, yo, let's work on your content and really tell your story, right? At the time, the media had really told JaVale's story his entire career. Mm-hmm. And obviously we all know like the difference of like what was going on TNT and how people were really identifying him as this kind of like goofy player, right, with the league, where he's much more than that. He's an entrepreneur. He's actually one of the smartest athletes you'll ever talk to because of the way he knows the game on and off the court. He's also big in, like I said, he's big in investments. So he's doing stuff obviously with crypto. Right now he's doing stuff with NFTs. Obviously we know he's vegan. So he's big into health food and that fitness. He's also a techie. So he's always messing with the new equipment. Gamer, huge guy on Call of Duty. So there's a lot of things. And we all know his personality. So there's all these things that were like, he had a ton of avenues he could tell the stories, but the media was focused on this one thing to where, and he's quoted it, is like, if you put a mixtape of Michael Jordan's worst plays together, you would probably make fun of him too. So I was like, yeah, that's a good point, because they're just putting together low light mixtapes together of you. So that's really what it was. So let's paint this picture of him. He's now a starter of the Lakers. He's playing with LeBron. They just got AD. Like, this is a big year. I'm like, let's tell it. Let's go ahead and showcase it. So I'm going to LA. I'm filming with him every game day. I'm traveling with him to, really tell the basketball story, because he's starting on the most watched team in the world at the time. Mm-hmm. Then the pandemic hits, March 2020. I'm in LA. They play the Nets. The next day, they're it. And we're pretty much like, what do we do now? Now I'm pretty much restricted to not record with him due to COVID protocol within the NBA, within the world at the time. Like, CDC was pretty much like, don't talk to anybody right now because we don't know what to do. So just stay in your houses. So we're now I'm like, hey man, you're gonna have to capture this content on yourself, and I will walk you through it. And it turned into like, hey, you've done vlogs before, but I'm gonna really coach you through these. So as he was packing up for the bubble, we got new words from the NBA. I reached out to the Lakers to be like, hey, during the playoffs, because you're allowed to bring family at the time, they're like, can Devin come? And essentially, it's one of my funniest claims to fame is you had to get a written like signature from Rob Pelinka that says like yes or no, and mine was obviously no. So, so it was funny that they like had to go this high up because they had us in their hotel room. So I'm like, hey man, why are you in the bubble? He's packing for it, and we had a current contract with a sponsor for his gaming side. And so I'm like, hey, pack this, pack that. He's like, what about my camera stuff? Should I pack that? And I go, yeah, just pack it. Let me think about it, but I think we can do some stuff in there. And that's all I said. And then I went to bed that night, and I go, wait, nobody else is going there but the team photographer and I think one broadcast. So I was like, hey, I need you to record everything. I don't care what it is. Like, all the things I need you to do is hit 3 things every vlog. Was I needed you, like the first one, for example, I'm like, I need you to say, give me your goodbye to your daughter. I need you to give me your arrival, like of the team arrival, and I need to give you a tour of your room. Like, I just need those 3 things. I don't care about anything else. If you capture anything else in between those, great. Those 3 things alone, that's going to be a good enough video. He does all 3. We get a bunch of stuff right. Danny Green interacts. You got Alex Caruso interacting. Guys popping up on camera. Goes great. All right. Hey, what do you got going on tomorrow? Well, I got to practice this. Okay. Show me the court. Show me your locker. Show me what you eat. That's it. Get everything else in between. Do it again. Cool. Second one works. And then we put out a third one. I think that was like the first scrimmage or something of that nature. And it was like, I'm like, all right, show me the bus ride in, show me your COVID test, show me your something from the scrimmage. Well, the NBA at that point had like figured out we were like getting game footage, like practice footage. And they kind of shut it down. We're like, hey, like, no, don't showcase that. We're like, oh, okay, whatever. So we showcased like them, like the post game, which was then like you get the very cool thing of like AD saying, purple and gold till I die. Like all these things that just went viral next day. So these first 3 went out, and I closed every time I do it. I would always close YouTube and I wouldn't check it for a day. And after the third one, I'm like, this one just hit 1 million. This one just hit 500,000. This one just hit 250,000 in 4 hours. Now we're number 2 trending in YouTube. We're number 3 trending on YouTube. All of these things are happening. I'm like, holy crap. So I'm like, dude, film as many of these as you can. Like, I don't care. At this point, film everything, and I'll just figure it out. Like, literally, that's what I said to him. I was like, film everything, I'll figure it out. Just make sure your stuff is charged. So at that time, it was like him and Matisse, like we were kind of like going back to back of like JaVale vlog drop, Matisse vlog drop, JaVale vlog drop, Matisse vlog drop. So that all starts happening. Because of that, I was also like semi-working with Troy Daniels at the time. Troy hits me up, was like, yo, I kind of want to do the vlog stuff you're doing with JaVale. I said, all right, man. Well, like, I'm going to give you the same phone that I gave him, right? Capture these 3 things, send it to me. His first vlog was, he's like, what's my birthday? I want to do something for my birthday. I said, all right, bet, let's do something for my birthday. We do these 3 things. Goes crazy. Oh, okay. Well, now Troy Daniels isn't a starter. He's on Denver. He's like the 9th guy on that team. Yeah. Third one goes viral. Second one goes viral. All of them. I'm like, Jesus, this is incredible. And at the end of the day, it was that people were absorbing this raw content from a player during an experience that nobody else can experience. And you really got like a real behind the scenes look at like what this life was for these athletes. And because of it, obviously a lot of opportunities opened up for me, opened up for these players because they were able to showcase their true selves through a camera they control, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something about knowing that the players shooting this is their perspective. It's not something contrived, not some team videographer in the background. Like it truly was from them. And I mean, obviously you were helping out from remotely as much as you could, but it's just super cool to get that perspective. And I mean, we talk about, yes, the vlogs and just Matisse Thybulle, you brought him up, Troy Daniels, and just that the bubble experience just really opened up the eyes, I think, to everyone around the value of that first person perspective of player produced content and everyone saw the light for the first time, maybe for some, and it's cool to hear that you played a key role in helping to make that stuff happen and turning JaVale and these guys into vloggers.
It's nuts, man. It's nuts. And now, a lot of them, and I think what opened their eyes to is opened the eyes to that anybody could do it, right? Throwing Matisse in there, like,
yeah,
you didn't have to be a LeBron or a Steph or a KD or a Giannis, right? Like, those are already great, but you could be anybody on any team as long as you're comfortable with telling your story, even if you're not that comfortable telling your story, right? Troy was not that comfortable doing the vlog stuff. I had to do a lot of coaching with him, but I was like, hey, if you do these 3 things and you just have fun with it, it's going to be great. And a lot of people overthink it, right? I always equate it to picture day as a kid, to where, hey, you always got to look your best when the camera's on you. So make sure your outfit's good, your smile's good, your hair's good. And I'm like, yo, just let it all down, man. Nobody really cares as much as you think about those things. Sure, there's going to be 1 or 2 comments that nitpick, like, oh, damn, did you know his jersey was on backwards or something like that? But half the time people are going to care. They're going to make a funny joke about it and keep it moving. And if you're able to have fun with it, and any sort of content right now we have with this, almost the fascination of this micro content with TikTok, sky's the limit for a lot of those athletes. And you see it now using like Isaac Rochelle and his wife from the Colts as an example. Like, Isaac's he's a good player, but I wouldn't put him in the Pro Bowl right now. So, but him and his wife are comfortable telling their story. So I think it's cool that all athletes understand that their voice is important, no matter what their stature is, no matter what their rank is, no matter who, what their place is in the league, whatever it may be. So it's real cool. And I think we're flipping a script essentially with athlete storytelling.
Oh, I love it. I got goosebumps. This is a great way for us to finish off here. Just so much good stuff, man. And you guys are just getting started there with STN, and so much good stuff to come as well. But we're having some more fun with you in our Edition with Devin segment. First episode, Shareable Stat, coming right up. Man, I love chatting with Devin. Someone I've admired for years now. Does great work with his content and clearly has a lot of great ideas and thoughts and insights on the space. And it'll be really cool to see where this place is going. And Devin there with STN doing their athlete partnerships is going to be a big part of it for sure. But stick around, because we're going to have more fun coming up with Devin with our quick hitting questions. But first episode's Shareable Stat. This Shareable Stat comes from a recent study looking at where U.S. users ages 16 plus watch short form video. And perhaps not surprisingly, the top one was YouTube at 78% of users saying they watch short form video, which is defined as under 10 minutes, short form video on YouTube. But number 2, think about what you would guess. And the answer is Facebook. By a decent margin, 61% said that Facebook is a place where they consistently watch short form video. That's followed by TikTok, Instagram at around 54%, respectively. Then Snapchat, Twitter, Pinterest, and LinkedIn round out the rest. But Facebook is still going strong, even though a lot of us, perhaps don't use Facebook. I'm rarely on Facebook myself, outside of for professional reasons primarily. It's easy to dismiss it as, oh yeah, we still post on Facebook. We don't expect much in terms of results there. But Facebook is still a behemoth around the potentially perhaps older audience, but also some of the younger audience around the world. And it's a place where if you look at how you're programming Facebook, they're obviously going all in on short form video as you see more reels being cross-posted between Instagram and Facebook, and that maybe perhaps there's more convergence of those platforms to come. But if you sit down and really strategically look at Facebook and how you can make the most of it, because even though people may, again, dismiss it, the numbers don't lie. The behavior doesn't lie. And with 61% of users saying they watch short form video on Facebook, if you really go at it and program your strategy effectively, you can make a big killing there on Facebook. So think about it. Definitely talk about it. It's pretty thought-provoking. And again, that survey results said that while 78% that watch short-form video on YouTube, which is a whole other conversation as well about maximizing YouTube and not just using it as a dumping ground, but a true strategic place for your team. But again, it's Facebook is the one we're talking about with 61%. Where U.S. users 8 to 16 plus watch short-form video. Again, video under 10 minutes. So that's the Shareable Stat, but stick around because we're going to have some more fun with Devin Dismang coming at you right now. Right back from this episode's Shareable Stat, and I am joined once again by Devin Dismang. He is the Director of Athlete Partnerships for STN Digital, also a long-time producer and freelancer, does a lot of great work in the space. Devin, you killed it in your interview. Are you now ready for some dishing with Devin?
Man, let's dish, bro.
All right, number one. Tell me, for your time doing the grassroots stuff that we talked about, your street team work, tell me your favorite or most lasting memory from that time.
From the street team work, I think my lasting memory would be almost, I would say when I was a kid. So when I was 16, I worked for the Chicago Bears grassroots side. Again, one of my if not my first job in sports. And we were at Bears training camp. And my job was to drive the golf carts around to and from like practice for the athletes to get back to their hotels, right? So my most memorable moment was I got to drive Devin Hester, which at the time was like a god in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
And this is when like I believe this, if I'm not getting the years wrong, I believe this is when the Madden one came out, or he was on the cover recently, right after that Super Bowl. And or right around the Super Bowl, and he had just gotten a bunch of copies of the game, right? So afterwards, they were like, yo, we're going to try out this man, because again, just like everybody else, like training camp is pretty much like summer camp, like for a bunch of guys. And I got to do that job every single day. Then one day he was like, yo, got something for you. He brought out me like a copy of Madden. So like at 16, 17 years old, like to get a copy of Madden from, you know, a guy that you kind of look up to and is doing. And ironically, like had the same first name as you, because at the time there wasn't too many like Devins who were famous. So like I was like, yo, my boy, like, you know, as a kid when you meet somebody with your name, like, yo, first name, my guy, like this is dope. So that's one of the first ones. And then to piggyback off, just to give it another quick one, is when I was with the Chicago Fire, we did the Chicago Fire versus the Mexican national game at Soldier Field. And at the time, standard grassroots stuff, you'd give out T-shirts, you'd sign people up. And I remember this family came up to us as we were kind of shutting down the shop. And it was this little kid, her brother, who was a little older, and then the mom. And the mom was pretty much talking to us about like, hey, my son is a huge soccer fan. He doesn't, you know, we couldn't get tickets to the game because they were sold out, but we just want to be out here and be the atmosphere. And we had this collaboration, like Mexican national team scarf mixed with the Fire logo. And I remember giving it to the kid and the little girl. And for some reason, I don't know what it was, but the little girl started crying. Like she was so excited to get this thing. And the mom was like, thank you so much. Like they were worried they weren't be able just to see anything, and anything this just made their whole day. And I remember the kids just kind of like skip, like it looked almost like a Disney film. Like the kids were like skipping away, like singing like the national like song for the Mexican national team. So those are two things that really stick out.
That's so awesome. Yeah. I first off, Devin Hester, a future Hall of Famer, I think.
I would love that.
It should be good to watch. And yeah, I mean, I remember I had someone from Montana Athletics on a few weeks ago, and he talked about the importance of those grassroots efforts, of having that face-to-face interaction with fans, and hearing that story from your Chicago Fire days just reinforces that it's those moments that fan, those kids will remember that forever and may make them a fan for life. And the more we can create those moments, especially for the youngest fans, like that's how we keep these teams thriving for generations to come. I love that.
Exactly. And that's one of the bigger things we talked about when working in the MLS side, is that the next generations of fans start a lot younger than you think. So if you're able to get somebody, you're able to convert a fan to a Fire fan or a soccer fan in general at the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, you're going to have a fan for a very long time, because they're going to remember moments like that their entire lives. So
totally love it. Number two. Let's put on our athlete marketing hats. Fun stuff. Tell me, thinking back, however long ago it might have been, tell me the first athlete that you remember thinking, this athlete knows what they're doing on social media. When was that first athlete that really caught your eye?
The first athlete that I thought was doing well on social media, Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton was one of the very first athletes. Again, I think we spoke about it earlier, is that a lot of guys tried YouTube. A lot of guys tried. I think Cam really was like, this is my narrative. I'm going to tell the narrative I want to do, and really invest into it in a way that folks were able to get the inside look into his life. Something that's a lot more common now. So I think Cam Newton is definitely the guy I think about. And I speak about his content often. To where like I wouldn't say, I don't know if he's technically the blueprint, but for me, I think he was the first one where I was like, you know what, Cam, not just from a social standpoint, but from a storytelling standpoint, he's doing it right. And he's making sure his narrative, especially someone who the national media has told his story his entire career, like he's been doing that almost, since the right prior to the Super Bowl appearance, or maybe 2 years prior to that. So yeah, he would be the guy.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. You can tell how much the fans really did love him when he made that return to Carolina. This was awesome to see.
Oh, it's a beautiful piece too.
Number 3 for you, Devin. Take me through the night as much detail as you want or can, that the Warriors won their first title of that Steph, Draymond, and Clay dynasty.
2015?
Yeah.
So actually in 2015, I did not travel because we won that one in Cleveland, I believe. Yes. And I didn't travel for that. That was before like Warriors studio really came involved. I think we sent one camera guy. Julie Fair was there from a social standpoint, but everyone else, we did a watch party at Oracle, and RIP Oracle, by the way. And they gave all the front office employees like suites for this. Like you got suite tickets, and then fans were able to buy like the lower bowl and all these things. And I remember being in the suite after we won. There's the classic thing of Steph and those guys throwing the ball into the air and hugging on the corner and all that stuff. But I remember we all had water bottles, and everyone just started throwing those things like we were in the locker room. So like Oracle, literally, I remember our arena contact was like, they said the cleanup crew said there was so much water like in the seats and the suites because people were just opening up bottles and going crazy. And then Oakland itself went nuts. Like we went out into the city and people were going out to bars and people were just celebrating. Like it was the first time I've really seen anything like that. Like even being in Chicago as a kid when the Bulls would win or the Black Hawks and all that kind of stuff. Like it was insane that night.
So cool.
But it was good to celebrate like with your friends and coworkers and people you kind of really grinded that season out in a way to where you didn't have to work for the first time. And then after that, all the other ones I definitely worked. But
that's the thing is that's what I was thinking as you were telling that story of like, do you have your fan hat on at that point? Do you have your Warriors employee hat on at that point? And it sounds like it evolved over the time as you like other times when you were in the room itself and had to have your work hat on and be getting
all the other ones were definitely I had my work hat on. Like even when we won in Oracle, was that 2017, 2018? Kevin's first year, like I was in the locker room for that. Like I'm, getting interview questions. I'm filming on a GoPro just to get additional footage, trying to interview guys, like while celebrating at the same time. Like it was crazy. Like I'd go from an interview and I still have this video on my phone where I'm interviewing James Michael McAdoo. And afterwards we take like a selfie video and we're like celebrating and just like they're throwing like Moet at me, and it was nuts, man. Like it was one of those things where like you're in the trophy room taking photos, like on the trophy portrait area, and guys are just drinking their champagne bottles and they're screaming, and then it's like, hey, Draymond, quick question, man. Like, tell me how you're feeling. Like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, I feel great, bro. Like, I feel great. And I'm like, I bet, and you're trying to like contain your excitement because this is like footage that's gonna last a lifetime.
Yeah.
And then like once our camera guy left, I'd be like, dabbing guys up. We were taking photos, all this kind of stuff. And it was cool. So it was definitely like I had to hit like 2 switches every time. But I tell you what, man, we definitely, that one we celebrated, I think the hardest was that 2017 one.
Man, what a lasting, just visceral memory. That's so cool.
Sure.
Number 4 for you, Devin, tell me your top tip or tips for an athlete that's just getting started or just starting to get serious about their social media presence. What would you tell an athlete that's just on that path?
I would tell them to really think about what they want to showcase. So it's always, every time I have a meeting with an athlete, especially a new one, who all they'll tell me is I want to up my content game. That's usually the request I get. And I ask them, I'll be like, my second question to them is like, have you looked into athletes or looked into like celebrities essentially that you like on social media? Like, who do you follow? Like, you're obviously getting this inspiration from somebody, who do you follow? And you really got to break it down to like, okay, this person is done. Let's say it's Will Smith, right? Will Smith is one of the biggest celebrities in the world. Along with that, he has one of the best social media presence in the world, in my opinion. Someone's like, I want to do stuff like Will Smith. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, let's break that down. Will Smith has, from a logistical standpoint, he has his own studio team. He has these people in place. So that's a team that you got to pay for. And then if there's concepts, right, from a 3D standpoint, from a lifestyle standpoint, from just a general capture standpoint, we got to think about that too. And then also the time commitment, the content. Like for your sake, being an athlete, you need a batch record, which is essentially setting a shoot day, 1 day a month, to record essentially 30 days of content. Doesn't have to be the longest content. Yeah. The stuff we're talking about for TikTok, IG Reels, whatever it may be. You don't, think that stuff through. So you're going to need somebody that you trust that can tell your story. Which then goes into my final point. What I tell them is work with someone that you truly trust to tell your story authentically, because anybody can come in there with a camera and tell you what to do. But if they don't know you, they're not going to be able to tell your story better than you. So having, and I mentioned this earlier, is if you don't have someone on your team that you're fully open with about your life, your situation, your career, your ambitions, whatever it is, like your content's not going to be pure. So you just really need to think that stuff through.
Man, so many good nuggets in there. I really like that. Can tell you've been in the space and you definitely get it. Lots of good stuff there. Number 5, Devin, moving along here in our Dish with Devin segment. Tell me your favorite content piece that you worked on during your time with the Warriors. The one that sticks out.
The one that sticks out the most would probably be the Quinn Cook documentary. And then one that I didn't really get to see all the way through, which is a bummer, but I started a series called Rituals with every player. We were supposed to go through their pregame ritual. Talked about why it was, the evolution of what it was. And we started it with Steph. And I think the last episode we did was Jonas Jerebko, but we were supposed to hit all the guys, just kind of talk about what really gets them in a mindset for the game. So that's something I really had wished I'd gone, because it was the first social piece that had an animated component to it. But Quinn's always going to stick out to me because that's a personal story. It's something that I have not just a professional tie to, obviously with the Emmy that came with it and everything but just the raw feeling of learning someone's story like him to showcase it to the world. And more importantly, it made his family proud, because I remember watching the final cut with his mom, his sister, and him. And he called, he hugged me. His mom was crying. His sister was crying. And then they ended up just watching it again, on repeat for 3 straight hours.
Oh, man.
So it was one of those things I have a very emotional tie to. And that's, I think to this day, I talk about that piece all the time because it's definitely my favorite.
That's so rewarding. That's so awesome to hear. Oh, I love that. Number 6, this is a good one. As long or as brief as you can. Seeing this exodus of people in the sports space, especially on the digital and social side, we're seeing a lot of people, part of the Great Resignation for sure, but certainly, being amplified in the sports and in the social and digital spaces. Tell me, what's your perspective seeing folks just leave these roles over the last year or two here?
What is my perspective?
Yeah, what's your take on that? Do you feel like it is it burnout? Is it compensation? Is it lack of appreciation? Is it other opportunities? What do you think is causing that exodus?
I think it's honestly the first 3 you mentioned, right? Pay first and foremost, burnout, and lack of appreciation just combined into one ball of mess. Being on the sports side and working with a lot of my close friends who were in the social space for teams, just speaking strictly from my situation, my experience and, what I've talked to, whether it's in the NBA, NFL, MLB, whatever it may be, is that the social media position has been such a glorified position over the last 8 years, to where it was easy to tell someone at 23, hey, you're going to be in charge of the Twitter account of the Golden State Warriors. And they would be thrilled about it because it's more about the opportunity than everything else. And then there's the perks of the job, right? Tickets, travel, being around players, having experiences you probably wouldn't have anywhere else, things of that nature. And what the pandemic showcased, and I was recently having this conversation with a close friend, is that the pandemic showcased the fact that if you take away all the perks in 93% of sports jobs and you just leave the job, nobody likes their job. Nobody does. Because at the end of the day, if I'm just a video editor, and I love to edit video, but if I'm editing the same type of video day after day after day, and I'm not interacting with players, I'm not traveling, I'm not having fancy dinners, I'm not getting merch, I can't have my family at games, and I'm only getting paid $54,000 in California, this isn't rewarding. This isn't the sacrifice doesn't make sense anymore. So I think with a social media standpoint, from a job that you have to be on 24/7, 365, and you need to be in the know with common trends and the continuous, updates of platforms, the new platforms that come around, right? Like now, no one's really talked about with the inclusion of TikTok over the last 2 years, 3 years, that I remember leaving the Warriors and we were having conversations about, should we start a TikTok account? And I'll never forget, we were in a meeting and someone said, yo, social media coordinator, someone who I helped get into that position, they go, you do it. Like it seems like it would be something that fits your personality. And she kind of took it and ran with it. But at the time, that's how people were thinking about these platforms versus throwing real strategy behind it. So it's those things where like, she probably did all this work for the TikTok account. And maybe she's a senior coordinator now, maybe probably getting paid 50 grand, 55 grand, maybe just live in San Francisco, let's say. That isn't worth it to where you could go to a Netflix, be one of their various social media supervisors, managers, whatever it may be, probably get paid 105K, 125K to say, hey, we got a new show coming out, respond to a few tweets and you're good. Like you don't have to be in everything. Yeah. And it allows you to really utilize your skill. And I think the burnout portion of it is just so detrimental because speaking from experience, like the sports side is a 24, like we just said, 24/7 thing. Totally. And you miss out on so much and that you don't really realize how much you miss out on until you're probably 28, 29. Like for me, I remember, and this is a personal story, is that I remember I missed out on my grandma's funeral for a Warriors event because I was essentially told the event, there's no one else to cover. Yeah. So people are missing out on birthday. We talk about birthdays, Christmases, holidays, things of that nature, but there's a lot more little things people don't think about until those things happen. And that really sits bad with a lot of folks. So I think with the team side and with how, everyone kind of leaving for, let's call it more secure jobs, more peace of mind, things that we're focusing on mental health and all of that is super important. It's the teams, the sports toxic culture of, well, if you don't want this job, we have 1,000 people in line for you, is now becoming null and void because sure, you're going to have people apply for it, but you're not going to, the person that you want with 5 years experience to do a job at $32,000 no longer going to happen because people have finally understood their worth. And, with the evolution of remote jobs like myself here at STN, like, if I don't have to be in an office, I'm not going to be in an office. So why would I if the teams can't have that now. So there's got to be a lot of change within. And I think they're playing a lot of catch up to almost make the sports space appealing again.
Man, I way too relatable. Everything you said. My 20s were a blur. I don't know where they went, so I can never totally relate. And I mean, at a certain point, like the sexiness and coolness of being in the sports space is outweighed by the sheer always on aspect of it and the holidays, weekends, nights, and all that as well. Like it's not a zero sum game there. And it used to be that the sexiness would outweigh everything you would think, or at least teams would think that. But we're starting to realize that there's green lights on the other side, or green fields on the other side as well. And it's not the same as it was, and nor should it be.
No, not at all. And I think this is waking up a lot of people, and I'm glad it's happening the way it's happening because it's also waking up the younger folks to like the younger professionals who will hit you up or hit me up and say, yo, I want to work in the sports space. But I really have questions about your experience versus like, I want to work in the sports space. Can you get me anything? And I'm like, hey, I used to tell them, hey, before you apply, you need to ask what this job entails. And a lot of them were like, well, you're just going to be around Steph, right? I said, cool. Yeah, for sure. 1 day a week. The other 4 days, I'm around people who don't listen to my ideas or will take credit for my ideas or will say no to those ideas and then pay somebody externally to execute an idea that was very similar to what I said. So you really need to understand what you're asking for at that time.
Totally. All right, I gotta get a food question for you, Devin. Tell me, if I go out there and hang out with you in Chicago, what's the best meal to get in Chicago? Where do we get it?
What is the best thing in Chicago to eat?
The best meal to get in Chicago. Where are you taking me?
Jesus Christ. Man, because everyone always pulls up to Chicago as like, bro, give me deep dish. So like I'm always hit or miss with deep dish. So if I take someone who's never been, recently I had a friend who just pulled up and she's like, I want deep dish pizza. We got her Lou Malnati's butter crust, sausage and pepperoni pizza. That's personally, in my opinion, the best deep dish in Chicago. I don't like Giordano's is cool. I think it's overrated. If not that, I'm taking you to what is more of a Chicago staple, but is now like in the suburbs and like that is a I'll call it a semi fast food place called Portillo's. They actually catered my wedding and they're known for like their Chicago hot dogs.
Nice.
And, they got a lot of meals there, but they have something called, and this is going to be like, that's called Devin's Fat Kid Moment of the Day, to where it's called a chocolate cake shake, where essentially what they do is they make a shake, right? And then they almost ground a piece of their chocolate cake, which is like super famous, into the shake. And it is the craziest concoction, but it is so fucking good. Pardon my language. It's so good. But it is something you can eat once and you're probably never going to eat it the rest of the day.
That's amazing. Can we just call it a smoothie and then all of a sudden becomes a little healthy?
For sure. Just throw some strawberries in it, bro. You get a strawberry cake. You know what I mean?
Now it's a health drink.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Market as such. Whole Foods. Talk to me.
Last before you hear, Devin, tell me the athlete whose social media we should all check out today and why.
The athlete social media you should check out today. Man, JaVale McGee, so I can get those followers up. But next to that, I think a great athlete you should check out on social media. If you haven't checked out Alphonso Davies, the soccer player from overseas, please check out Alphonso Davies. I think that is his numbers are crazy, but the content there is even crazier. So I think he would be a great person.
That's definitely a good one. I like that. We'll have to check out his stuff for sure. And of course, it's a good time right now for Canadian soccer. They're kicking ass.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Devin, kicked ass in your segment. Now your chance to take over the podcast and tell us your social media all-star to follow. So now we're talking non-athlete. Just tell us for whatever reason you like to follow them. Tell us who they are and why they're following.
Man, I've already praised his name several times here, but Will Smith's such a great follow, not just from telling his own story, but telling a lot of other people's story. I think it's great. His page is, half lifestyle, half what he's doing, and like half meme page. And I think it's always hilarious. Another person who I really enjoy, I would say, is actually let me look that. What is that kid's name? He also did soccer stuff, but he does a lot of like visual effects transitions. Jeremy Finch, I think his name is. Off the top of my head, I can't remember it. He does a ton of like. He has a YouTube page, he has a TikTok page, and I found him on TikTok, but he does a lot of visual effects with like Marvel characters. So then all of a sudden he'll become like Iron Man out of nowhere and things of that nature. And those two I really, really enjoy. And I'm probably blanking. Oh, and I don't know the girl's real name, but she's the girl that people that a lot of sports teams collaborate, where she's like, do you know what her job is? And she does the same TikTok song over and over and over. It's like N Apples or something like that is her name. She is hilarious. And then keeping on like the TikTok creators theme, the corporate Natalie, just the corporate like funny people who make fun of like 9-to-5 lives. Those accounts are hysterical. So shout out to all those people, because I wish I could recall their names off the top of my mind. But
some great ones. There are so many good creators out there, man. It's so what a time to be alive, as the saying goes.
Absolutely, dude.
How about you, Devin? Where can we find you, as well as all things STN Digital on digital social media?
Say that one more time.
Where can we find you, your work, and as well as STN Digital? Where do you want to send folks?
Man, if you want to tap in with the boy, follow me on IG, TikTok, and Twitter at Dismang, spelled DISMAYNE. It's a play on my last name, as well as you can check me out on YouTube, full name, Twitch, just look me up there too, where I'll do editing streams, gaming, etc. Next to that, for STN, definitely tap with them on Instagram at STN Digital. Check out the website. A lot of cool stuff coming there. But definitely tap in with me because I'll be obviously resharing, reposting things of that nature. And hey, if anybody is interested in working with me, not just at STN, but from a freelance perspective, I'm always looking for, creators, whether it's illustrators, animators, videographers, editors, photographers. If you can create, I'm probably looking for it in some capacity, and especially if you're Black, POC, a woman, I want to get you in those spaces as much as I can. So definitely hit me up and I will definitely chat with you.
Absolutely love that. Devin, cannot thank you enough for coming on today. You do such great work in the space. It was great to learn from you, pick your brain. There's a method to all the madness, and you are just an awesome person for the space and for athletes that you work with and for teams that you work with. I just really appreciate you lending some of your time and your wisdom for us today.
My friend, thank you so much for the opportunity to discuss this all with you. Thank you to all the listeners that pulled up. Tap in. If you ain't following the podcast, make sure you're giving the podcast a follow, hit it with the stars, you know what I'm saying? Drop a sub, hit a comment in there. Make sure you get his podcast up to like a top 5. Help the boy out, man.
Hell yeah. I can't wait till we collaborate on content, geek out on social, and enjoy some chocolate cake smoothies.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much again to Devin Dismang, Director of Athlete Partnerships for STN Digital, and also, of course, continuing doing great stuff as an executive producer and director working with athletes and brands. Just so talented. He's produced a ton of great content that you've likely seen and heard about, and we talked about a lot of it today. Check him out. Continue to follow his great work with STN as well as independently, and just cannot thank Devin enough for giving us some of his wisdom and his time today on the podcast. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast. Again, thanks for listening. I am your trusty host, Neil Horowitz. You can find me on Twitter at NJH287. Also on LinkedIn. You can connect with me there and follow me there where I post more content. The website is, as always, dsmsports.net, where there's more episodes and content. And, of course, follow along with the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, this is Neil Horowitz signing off for the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast.